I left school when I was 15 years old,
Attaboy.
and I learned absolutely nothing at school. I went to a very rural, basically, it was kind of like a boot camp before you got kicked out and got on a tractor or worked in a factory. So school was just meant absolutely nothing to me. I learned nothing at school. Everything I ever learned as a child, I learned from my mother, who happened to be and still is, probably the most intelligent woman I know. So everything I learned about art, literature, art and literature, I learned from her, which is why mathematics is something that is just gobbledygook to me. But yeah, I had no formal education whatsoever. One of my favorite lines, going back to Bruce Springsteen, and I quote Bruce Springsteen, I learned more from a 3-minute record than I ever learned in school. And I think that's absolutely hits the nail on the head, because I basically, and I know this sounds a bit like a cliche and it's a bit corny, but I literally got my education on the road, hanging out with a bunch of itinerant rock and roll musicians for a bunch of years. And you learn a lot because it takes you to a lot of places. I mean, I had my formal education from my mother, but the things that she instilled in me, I improved upon when I came to places like New York. I mean, I was lucky to come here when I was 20 years old, and there's a lot of downtime when you're on the road with a bunch of musicians, other than, getting in trouble and making a fool of yourself. Luckily, I spent some of my time by going to museums and art galleries, and that's where I learned, that's where I got the whole background that has sort of formed everything else in my psyche, and what I write about, and why I became a painter and why I paint. And so, yeah, I learned zip in school, and I learned a lot from life.